As Hashem, today's daf is Masechta Baba Kamma Daf Mem Ches, and we can begin from Daf Mem Zayin Omid Beis, about like 5 lines from the bottom. The Gemara begins. Ibaylahu. The Gemara asks the question. We know that if you tell somebody, "Oh, you can bring your fruits into my yard," okay, it's okay, right? If you say that to a person. So basically, you're basically saying to the person, don't worry, I'll make sure that my animal is not going to eat your fruits, or my animal is not going to damage your fruits. I'm sorry. My animal is not going to damage your fruits. But what is that? How far when you say that somebody can bring something into your yard, what does that mean? Are you watching it totally? That even if a third party comes and damages it, are you still liable or not? Let's read in Gemara. Let's read. If a person accepted upon himself to watch something by allowing somebody to bring his fruits into his yards or bring his ox into his yards, then not.
If it's a Shamachinam or he got paid for it.
No, he doesn't. But it doesn't. Even if he's a Shamachinam, he has to watch it that makes sure that it doesn't get damaged. So. Yeah. Did he accept upon himself that he's going to watch it, that his own animal is not going to damage it? For example, a guy brings in his pots into somebody else's, he says, you can bring your pots and leave it here. He's basically saying that I'm going to make sure that my animal is not going to crush your pots. Or it goes even one step further. He accepted upon himself that if some other from afar away somebody else is going to damage it, he's also going to take responsibility for that. Not just if his own animal, but if a third party damages it, he damages the pots, he's going to take responsibility because he allowed you to bring it into his yard. Tashma coming here. Tani Rabbi Yehuda Bar Simon. Rabbi Yehuda Bar Simon taught bin zokin de bekarna in one of the prices that are Berkana put it together in his Seder Nezikin. And the Brisa reads like this: Hichnis peiraisav lechatzar balabayis shlei bersus. A man brings his fruit into a courtyard he trespasses, he brings his fruits into somebody else's courtyard without permission. And another ox came from somewhere out of nowhere, not belonging to the Baal HaChotzir, but a strange ox came and ate it, potter. Of course, the Baal HaChotzir is potter. Then hechnes b'rshus, but if the Baal HaChotzir, the owner of the Chotzir, allowed you to bring it in, and another ox came and ate it, you chayev to pay. Man potter, man chayev. What does it mean, potter or chayev? Lav potter Baal HaChotzir. Is the Baal HaChotzir potter? The chayev Baal HaChotzir, or is the Baal HaChotzir chayev? So is it? So we see from here that once you allow somebody to bring something into your yard, you're taking full responsibility to watch it, even if a third party's ox comes and damages it. Isn't that what we see clearly from the Brisa? And says the Gemara, Amri, the yeshiva boys answered, "Lo, it's not true. Potter balashar v'chay balashar." What it means is that if you had no permission to bring your fruits into that person's courtyard, then the third party's ox will be not liable to pay. And if you have permission to bring it in, then the third party's ox will be liable to pay. Why so? So the Gemara explains, Vi balashar. We go to my bershus, my shlosh iko. What's the difference if it's the balashar? What's the difference if you had permission to bring it into the yard or not? Well, so the Gemara says like this. Amri says, bershus, if you had permission to bring the into the yard, Havyola Shane, Rishus Hanidzek. What is it? It becomes shame. Hold on. Okay. Havyola Shane. Oh, pardon me. Okay. Havyola Shane, Rishus Hanidzek. It becomes Shane, Rishus Hanidzek. It means once you have permission to bring the fruits into the yard, so then if a third party ox comes and eats it, it's as if he's going into the domain of the nizik, and yechayev if he eats it out because of shame. The Shein b'rshus nizik chayavis, and Shein in the domain of the nizik is liable. Shaloi b'rshus, but if you have no permission to bring your fruits there, so then havi le'shein b'rshus rabim. Then it's a shein b'rshus rabim. V'shein b'rshus rabim petura. The shein in the public domain where everybody can bring in their fruits, then it's potter, because the Torah was very careful in its words that shein is only when it's b'rshus hanizik uvir b'stei acher. So only if you have a right to bring the fruits into somebody else's chotzer, then if a third party ox eats it, then it'll be chayiv to pay, because that's called bir b'stei acher. And that's what the brisa means to say. It's not that the owner of the chotzer is taking responsibility. It is the question that the brisa is dealing with: is the third party ox obligated to pay when it eats those fruits or not? Toshma, come in here. A man brings his ox into the courtyard of somebody else without permission. And a third party ox came and gored that ox that went into somebody else's chatzah without permission, potter. Then it's potter from pay. But if he had permission to bring it, chayev. So man potter man chayev, la potter balachotzer v'chayev balachotzer. What it means probably is that once the balachotzer gave permission for you to bring your ox in there, that means he's taking full responsibility if it gets damaged by a third ox. So that solves our dilemma. Answers the Gemara, loy, that's not so. The balachotzer never takes responsibility if a third party's ox, gores it, even though he gave you permission to bring your ox into his courtyard. But what does it mean is potter balashar v'chayev balashar. It means that is the third party box obligated if you come in or not? That means if you come in without permission, then the third party's ox is not obligated. So the Gemara asks, why not? If it's Keren, ihachi my b'rshus my loy b'rshus ika. What's the difference if you had permission to bring that ox into the courtyard of somebody else? What's the difference if you had permission to bring it? It's Keren is chayev in reshus harabim and in reshus hanizik. Well, there will be no difference if you had permission to bring it or not. Answers the Gemara, Amrei, Hamani, there is a difference. We have to know if you had permission to bring it into the chotzer or not, because according to Rab Tarfin, the brisa goes according to Rab Tarfin, that really Tom pays 50%, right? But that's only if the Tom damages in the Reshus Harabim. But Rab Tarfin is of the opinion, the Amma Mashuna Karen Bechatzara Nizik. Karen, the goring in the courtyard of the nizik, that means the animal goes into the courtyard of the victim and gores that animal, then there's no dispensation of 50%. Actually, even a tam, there's a shalom mishalim. He will pay 100% of the damages. So we have to know, if you had permission to go in there, then the Karen would pay 100% of the damages. But if you didn't have permission, then the third party's ox will only pay 50% of the damages, because the Karen B'Shus Rabim, it has a din of Karen B'Shus Rabim, because you had no permission to bring your ox into the balachotzer. So it's like as if it's in the Rishus Rabim. And you will only pay half the nezek. So the Gemara left the Ibaya, the question, at a standstill and did not come to a conclusion. Now the Gemara tells us a story. There was this lady. She went to bake in somebody else's house. Like in the old country, not everybody could afford an oven. So she went to bake her dough into somebody else's house. Presumably, she had permission to do so. Asa Barcha de More, the owners of the house's goat came, Achala Lalisha, and ate the dough. Chavel, it got sick, it got heated up, umis, and the goat died. So the lady was supposed to watch that the owner's goat should not eat that dough. The Rava required that the lady to pay for the value of the goat. Now, it's more than that, because what the Gemara is doesn't speak out, but later on it'll speak out, that really when she went to knead her dough in somebody else's house and to bake it, the man of the house had to leave the house, because when a woman kneads her dough, she rolls her sleeves up in a non-sneistic way, causing the owner of the house to leave. She knows that. And because of that, basically, she, without realizing it, must take responsibility that the owner's goat should not eat her dough. And if the owner's goat eats her dough, then she's liable. She's supposed to watch that the goat not eat her dough. So the Gemara just speaks it out. Lema pliga darav. Maybe, why did Rava say that she has to pay for the goat? Doesn't Rava argue against Rav? Does Rava argue against Rav? The Omar Haviyaloh Shloi Teichel. We learned yesterday, Rav said an opinion that you could always get out of paying for an animal if the animal did something on its own by eating something that it wasn't supposed to. Because she could say, what's your goat eating my dough? So the Gemara says, Amri, no, hachi hasha, it's different. Hasam shloi b'rshus, loy kibal alein terusa. Rav was talking about a case where you had no permission to bring your food into somebody else's house. Then Rav says, then you don't fault the person if the trespassers caused the death of the animal of the person who owned the property, because he could say your animal should not have eaten my food. But hacha b'rshus, here the lady came in with permission, and she caused that the owner had to leave because she was needing with not a tznius dig away. She accepted upon herself to watch that the goat will not eat the dough. And the Gemara explains, why is this any different? A woman goes into somebody else's house to grind wheat without permission. And the owner's animal ate up the wheat. Part of the owner's animal, the owner's of the property doesn't have to pay for the wheat. Vim and if the owner's animal slipped on those pieces of wheat, chayeves, then the woman that brought the wheat in is chayev to pay. But the whole point is because she had no permission to bring the wheat into the house without asking permission. But if she did have permission, and she had permission, and what happened was the animal got damaged by it, you're potter from paying. Why? Once she has permission, she should be watching out for the animal of the balabayas. Answers the Gemara, no, not true. Amre, when it comes to grinding wheat, keeping the loy bites and yusumide, she doesn't have to do it grind in an unmodest way. So she didn't kick the owner of the chatzir out because she could grind her wheat and the owner could still be there. And it's on the owner to watch for his own animal not to eat the wheat. Once you're coming to bake into somebody's house, Kavan the boya eats niusa, she's needing in a non-sneistic way. So the owner of the house has to leave the house, and she's aware of that. Therefore, it was on her responsibility to watch the goat, the owner's goat, that it doesn't eat her dough, and that's why Rava required her to pay. Now the Gemara says a few statements of Rava, different halachas. Amar Rava said like this: a man brings his ox into the courtyard without permission. He brings it into somebody else's property without permission. He trespasses with his ox, and this was such a novel ox. This ox dug holes in the ground in somebody else's property. So the damages that he caused to the property, the owner of the ox is liable. But what happens if the owner of the property keeps those holes in the ground, and then says, "Oh, my field should be hefker"? So he actually bequeathed a field to the Rishus Harabim full of bayrim, full of pits. So therefore, the balachotzer would be obligated and liable if somebody gets damaged by falling into those pits. Wait a second, but he didn't dig it. It was somebody else's ox that dug that hole when he owned the property. So Avagav the Omamar, we learned in a Gemara ki yichre ish bar v'loy shar bar, that only if an ox digs a bar, if a human digs a bar, but not if the ox digs a bar, so you're not obligated to pay. And says the Gemara, no, here it's different. You had the opportunity to fill up the hole while you still own the property prior to you bequeathing it to the Rishus Harabim. So although somebody else's ox dug holes in your property, you had the opportunity to cover those holes and fill it up, and you didn't. And because of that, even though you now that you bequeathed it, you're still liable for that pit. It's command the Charyadame. It's as if you dug those holes yourself. Amar Rava said, Hichnes shoyer lechatzar balabayis shloi b'rshus, v'hizik balabayis or balabayis huzik boy chay. A man brings his ox into somebody else's courtyard without permission. And the balabayis, the owner of the property, got damaged. You brought your ox in and it like gored the balabayis. Or balabayis huzik boy. Or the owner of the tripped over, let's say, over the ox. Let's say he didn't see it and he just flipped over the ox, chayav. So if the owner of the ox is chayav for any damage he caused to the owner of the property, ravatz. But if the ox crouched, and then the owner of the property tripped over the ox, potter, the owner of the ox is not chayav to pay, even though he brought the ox without permission. So the Gemara asks a question: Mishum de ravatz potter. What's the difference? He had no permission to bring your ox there. Just because the ox crouched down, why should the owner of the ox be not liable? Amar Rapapa said, "My ravatz." What does ravatz mean? Shehirbetz galolim. It defecated. It created manure, and then it stayed there. V'nitatfu kelev shel balabayis, and the kalim of the balabayis. Let's say the balabayis didn't see that there's manure on his property, and his suit got dirty. The havile galolim bar. Once the manure is like a pit. Bar is not chayev when it damages a suit, when it damages kalim. But that's why it's not liable. That's why it's potter. So ravatz means it made manure. So the Gemara says any stumbling block, anything put on the ground, it has a din of bar, has the laws of bar. Rav says that just because you leave something on the ground, let's say you leave your suitcase in the middle of the street, that's not a bar, because that is your mammon. Yeah, that's your money, because unless you made it hefker. So by the case of the galolim, maybe the guy didn't make it hefker. So why is it called bar? The Gemara explains stam galolim afkuri mafkalahu. If an animal made manure, so then most owners make it free. So even according to Rav, it has a din of bar, and therefore if it damaged the suit of the owner of the property, that he won't be liable to pay. Nu Gemara, Amar Rava said, a man trespassed into somebody's property without asking, right? The hizik is balabayis, and he somehow caused the balabayis, he damaged the balabayis, even if he didn't intentionally. He damaged the balabai, the owner, or balabayis huzik boy, or the owner tripped up over him, didn't see the guy who entered his property. Chayev, the guy that entered without permission, is liable to pay. Says the Gemara, hizikoy balabayis, if the owner of the owner caused him damage, he caused the trespasser damage, potter, then he's not liable to pay. So basically, guy trespasses in your property, you can damage him. Amar Papa said, Loy Amram, we didn't give you permission to damage somebody that trespasses into your property. Ela deloy have a yodabe. You didn't know about him. So you if you accidentally damage him, you're not liable to pay. Aval you have a yodabe, if you know him, and then you purposely hizikah balabayis, and then you purposely just punch him in the face for no reason, chayev, then you're chayev to pay, despite the fact that he trespassed in your property. My time, what's the reason? Because we tell him, we tell him you could nicely or even harshly remove the trespasser from your property, but just to plain damage him, give him a punch in the face, that you have no permission to do just because he trespassed into your property. And this makes sense because this the Amar Papa Papa said this in another area. We go to Amid Beis Memches Shnayim Shnehem Bershus Shnehem Shloi Bershus. Two people have a right to walk, let's say in a Rishus Harabim, or two people have no permission to do something in a Rishus Harabim. Let's say two people are running in the Rishus Harabim. Hiziku zeh, if they inadvertently damaged each other, chayavim, since they're liable to pay. Husku zebazef, one tripped over the other, right? So then Peturim, then nobody has to pay because the one that tripped over the other person should be careful not to trip. Now, this is what Rav Papa said. Tama d'shneim b'rshus shneim shlei b'rshus. It's only because they both of them had a right to be there. Let's say it's a Rishus Harabim, or both of them did not have the right to do what they were doing. Let's say they were running in the Rishus Harabim. Nobody has a right to do that, and therefore we say hiziku zeh or husku zeh, the different halachas. But if one of them had the right, was in the right, and one of them did it without permission, the b'shus potter, the one that's doing it with right, so then he's not liable to pay. Shaloi b'shus, the guy that's doing it without permission, chayiv is obligated to pay. So same thing over here. A guy trespasses into somebody else's property, he's really shaloi b'shus. So any damages that he causes the owner, he's chayiv to pay. But the owner who had a right to be in his own property, any damage he will cause somebody else, if it's shaloi b'kavana, without intention, he's not obligated to pay. This is all presumed that even an Adam that does damage, even if he has no intention, and it was all an accident, an Adam muad lo'ilam, that I assume you know, that an Adam is always liable. It's only when somebody had no permission to be there, then we give a leniency and say to the owner, if you accidentally damage the trespasser, you're not liable to pay. New Gemara. A guy brought an ox into somebody else's property, and it fell into his water well, and it soiled all the water. Chayiv, you chayiv to pay. Amar Rava said, as it fell into the water, it made the whole water dirty and filthy, and therefore was unusable as it fell. If the ox, after it fell, let's say after it fell, and staying there a long time, it caused the water to become dirty, potter, then you're not obligated to pay. Why? Because my tama have a shar, the shar becomes like a bar. The shar becomes like a bar. Umayim, the water, even is like kalim. Bar is only liable if it damages an animal, but if it damages anything but an animal, it's not liable to pay. So therefore, after the shar fell into the water, let's say the shar died in the water, and then after being a dead shar in that water, then the water became spoiled. So the shar has a din of a bar, and therefore, it's now destroying the water. The water has a din of kalim. We never find bar that's liable for damaging kalim. So the Gemara says, Shmuel said that a dead shar, could turn into a bar, right? Because anything that's a stumbling block and it's not moving is a din of a bar. Even a regular suitcase that you still own, according to Shmuel, that's a bar. Even the dead ox, even though the owner plans to retrieve it, it's considered a bar. El Rav, the Oma Adam Mafkele, Rav said a bar is only if you actually make it hefka. My ikalamema. So Rav said we could presume that the bar, the guy is going to retrieve his bar, is going to retrieve that shar. So why is it the shar turn into a bar? According to Rav, this is what was said. Amar Rav is meant to say, the only time that the damage shar he's liable for paying for the water is if the shar damaged with the dirt on its body. But if it damaged because let's say it turned into an avela, and it damaged because the smell that it gave off damaged the water. Now the water has like a foul taste to it. Not that the water is dirty, but it has a foul smell to it. Then it's potter. My tama, what's the reason? Grama ba'almahu. It caused a bad smell to the water is only a grama. He caused it. It's not a direct damage of the ox. Ugrama ba'alma loy mechayev. If you cause a damage, but it's not a direct damage, it's a one derivative from a cause, then you're not obligated to pay. That's what Rava meant to say, according to Rav. Next Gemara. Haya of ubunai seiche mishalem as a koifer. So what does that mean? The Gemara says that if you let your shar, if somebody let a shar without permission into somebody else's property and it fell into a pit, then and turns out that the guy's father or son was in that pit, you would pay koifer. Frank, the Gemara v'amai, why do you pay koifer? It's the first time that this shar killed somebody. Hatamhu, and a tam does not pay kofer. Amarav, Rav says, our Mishnah is talking about b'muad lipol al b'nei adam b'baris askinim. We have this animal that already, this is the third time it fell into a pit and killed somebody. Says the Gemara, ihachi bar katalahu. Then why didn't you kill it? Why didn't you kill this animal the first time where it fell onto somebody? When it was already a muad, the first time it fell and killed somebody, you should have killed this animal because the animal didn't run away. It's remained in the pit after killing somebody. You should have brought it up and killed it. So how did it ever kill somebody 3 times by falling into a pit? Rav Yosef explained the chazi roiken fal. Really, it never killed somebody on purpose. It actually saw a vegetable and it was a clumsy animal and then fell into a pit. And this happened 3 times. And because the animal did not kill with intention, therefore, we would not kill the animal. But nevertheless, if this happened 3 or 4 times, then the animal would pay koifer. And that's how our Mishnah is referring to. This animal made accident by falling into a pit, by eating clumsily. It fell into a pit. This happened 3 or 4 times. But nevertheless, since this is the 4th time, it would pay koifer despite that you're not going to kill the animal. Shmuel says, really, it's the first time the animal killed somebody, and yet you pay koifer because Hanamani Mishnah goes according to Rabbi Yosef Galili. The Amma Tam Mishalem Chatz Koifer. A Tam pays a half a koifer. Ula says Rabbi Yosef Galili. The Amma Krab Tarfin. The Amma Karen Mechatzar Nizik Nezik Shalom Mishalem Hachinami Koifer Shalom Mishalem. Ula agrees with Shmuel that our Mishnah goes according to Rabbi Yosef Galili that you pay, a tam will pay koifer, but he'll go one step further, that since it's in the Chetzar HaNizik, since it's not in the Rishus Rabbim, the tam is not going to pay just a half a koifer, it's going to pay a koifer, a complete koifer. So the Gemara finishes off. That was the father or the son inside of it, inside that pit, who had a right to be there. That's why you pay koifer sholim. Ela Shmuel, my area of even if it was a strange man in there who also, let's say, came into somebody's property without permission, and the shar fell onto the person in that pit, he would pay a half a koifer. It doesn't matter if it was the father or the son or somebody else, a stranger. So why does our Mishnah say, oh, if the father and son was in that pit, you pay koifer? And for the Gemara, it says it's just a common case. Common case is that the father or the son is going to be in the property, working on the property, and that's how it happened. But it's not only if the father and son, even if it was somebody else. So a couple of terutzim, how to explain the Mishnah of the animal falling into a pit, you'll pay koifer. 1 more minute and we'll stop. The halacha is like Rebbe who said, you know what, we'll stop over here. That's it. We'll stop over here. Okay?
Sure.